Hello everyone and welcome back to our virtual Mishnah Berurah share. We're holding Mishnah Berurah Chelik Aleph and we'll be learning today Mitzvah Hashem Daf Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. We are continuing to learn Hilchos Tzitzis and we pick up today on the bottom line of the Shulchan Aruch on Lamed Amud Beis Siman Chaf Aleph Sif Gimel. Says the Mechaber, Mutar likanes betzitzis lebeis hakisei. It is permissible to enter the Beis Hakisei, to go into the facilities while wearing tzitzis. Says the Mishnah Berurah Katan Yud Daled. When we say that you're allowed to go into the Beis Hakisei wearing tzitzits, what kind of tzitzits are we referring to? V'dafka ba'arba kanfais hakatan shalov shoy kol hayom. Explains the Chavetz Chaim that here we are speaking about our talis katan. The talis katan, which is a beged that we wear all day long, we're not mechuyev to take the beged off to go into the Beis Hakisei. That's considered a beged hedyet. That's considered kind of a beged that's not so much a beged shal mitzvah, it's not a beged of kedusha, and you're allowed to go into the Beis Hakisei wearing a talis katan. Aval, however, elu talisais shal mitzvah shem yuchadin rak lehispalel behen. However, the talis gadol, which is a beged that's miyuchad for tefillah, that ein nachay sheyikanis behem lebeis hakisei. We are not permitted to go into the Beis Hakisei while wearing that kind of beged. I saw brought down very nice. We have a pasuk in Parshas Achrei Mos. Let's find it over here. No, not Parshas Achrei Mos. My apologies. Parshas Tzav. So the Torah Kedosh is talking about the avodah of the Trumas Hadeshen. What's the avodah of the Trumas Hadeshen? Every day the kohen would have to go up to the Mizbeach, take a small amount of ash off the top of the Mizbeach, and put it down next to the Mizbeach. So this was an avodah that was done every day, the Trumas Hadeshen. And the Chazal tell us that the Deshen, the ash that was placed down on the ground next to the Mizbeach, miraculously it was swallowed up into the ground. But then, occasionally, they would actually have to go up to the top of the Mizbeach and do more of a substantial cleaning on the roof of the Mizbeach. At the center of the roof of the Mizbeach, there was an area that was called the tapuach. Literally, it means an apple. There was a dome-shaped mound of ash. So on a regular basis, they would always gather up the ash onto the center of the roof of the Mizbeach and make it into this tapuach. Every morning, they would take a small amount of ash, put it down next to the Mizbeach. When they did a substantial cleaning, then they would remove a significant amount of ash from the roof of the Mizbeach, and that would be taken mechutz lamachane. It would be put somewhere mechutz lamachane. Now the pasuk tells us, when the kohen would go to do this avodah, to clean off the roof of the Mizbeach, ufashat es begadav v'lavash begadim acherim. The Torah Kedosh tells us that the kohen was supposed to take off his regular big day kahuna that he would wear to do the avodah. He would put on different begadim. And Rashi tells us begadim that were pchusim, lesser, somehow begadim of lesser chashivas. And the Gemara in Shabbos, I have a Shabbos Gemara here. The Gemara in Shabbos tells us, let's see, Gemara in Shabbos, Kuf Yod Daled Amud Aleph. The Gemara tells us, the pasuk says, "Ufashat es begadav v'lavash begadam acherim." When the pasuk here tells us that the kohen should take off his regular big day kahuna and he should put on begadam acherim when he takes the deshen michutz lamachane, Tana debei Rabbi Yishmael. There was a brisa taught to the Mishnah of Rabbi Yishmael, limatcha Torah derech eretz. The Torah Kedosh over here is telling you proper behavior. Begadim shebishal behen kidera l'rabbi. If a person is working in the kitchen and he's preparing food for his adon, for his master, or for his rebbe, we'll take it literally, l'rabbi. So you're working in the kitchen, that's a type of work where you could get dirty. Your clothing could get stained. So begadim shebishal behen kidera l'rabbi, al yimzoig behen kais l'rabbi. You don't wear those same begadim when you go to bring your Rebbe a kais to offer him a kais. When you're working in the kitchen, you wear begadim that are appropriate for the kitchen. Then when you want to go bring the adain a kais, then you go put on nice, fresh, clean begadim to go bring the adain a kais. So too over here, what the halach is telling us is that to wear a talis gadol is a beged that's miyuchad l'tfila. You don't take that same beged and schlep it into the Beis HaKisei. Obviously, the Beis HaKisei is not a makom shel kavod. It's not an honorable place. So if it's a beged that you wear for chashivas atfila, if it's a beged that you wear to come to the Rebbeinu Shalom in tefillah, we don't take that same beged and wear it into the Beis HaKisei. Then, surprisingly, says the Mishnah Berurah, and he brings this down from the Sefer Derech HaChaim, ach lahashtin bahen mutter. However, literally the words mean to urinate while wearing a talis gadol, that would be mutter. Now, it seems that there are different ways of understanding what the Mishnah Berurah means here. Some learn the Mishnah Berurah that the Mishnah Berurah means that you're even allowed to go into the Beis HaKisei for the purpose of urination while wearing a talis gadol. Just you're not allowed to go into the Beis HaKisei while wearing a talis gadol for the purposes of gedolim, for defecation. Others learn not that way. Others learn that what the Mishnah Berurah is saying is you're never allowed to go into the Beis HaKisei wearing a talis gadol. However, we know that many times we are much more, I guess the word would be makel, when it comes to urination, because the need to urinate brings together with it a factor of sakana. Chazal tell us that if somebody refrains from urinating when he has the need to do so, that could cause him to become infertile, could make him into an akar. So for that reason, we are very lax when somebody has the need to urinate, we tell him we want him to be able to urinate right away. So to urinate while wearing a talis gadol, that you're allowed to do. To go into the Beis HaKisei, not. But back in the day, when people would go out into the field to urinate, so to urinate while wearing a talis gadol, that would be okay. Obviously, nowadays, when we don't have the need to do so, when we have indoor plumbing and it's very easy to just go take the talis off, put the talis back on again, it would certainly seem to be proper to remove the talis gadol first. Continues the Mishnah Berurah, Gam ha'holchi b'yom HaKippurim lipanos u'melubashim b'kittel. If somebody on Yom Kippur is wearing a kittel and he has the need to use the Beis HaKisei, tzarich sheyivshay hakittel. He should take off the kittel. Kevin shebeged zeh miyuchad rak lehispalel. Because again, with the kittel, we're also talking about a beged hamayuchad l'tfila. It's something that you wear. When do you wear it? You wear it on Yom Kippur when you're in shul and you're davening. So it's also considered a chash of a beged. Just interesting over here. The Dirshu footnote number 11 brings down, we're calling over here the kittel a beged that's miyuchad l'tfila. However, we know many of us have the minhag to wear a kittel by the Pesach Seder. By the Seder, we're sitting and we're eating, so it's not only a zman of tefillah. So he brings down over here, Mashiyesh naigim she'oichle b'leil Seder kishem levushim b'kittel das hagoyin Rabbi Yosef Shalom al Yashu zechet tzadik levracha shekeven shu lailo shel mitzvah. What is the Seder? The Seder is not a regular Suda. The Seder is a Suda. It's a Suda shel mitzvah. It's when we're Makayim all of the mitzvahs, Dalit Kaisai, Matzah, Marar. So the whole night, Sipri Tzias Mitzrayim, it's almost like when you sit down to the Pesach Seder, it's almost like you're sitting in the Beis HaMedrash, or you're sitting in the Beis HaKnesses. So therefore, Rav Yashiv says, Ein zem moirid mimalas hakittel. That does not denigrate the kittel, the fact that you wear it to the Seder. V'nishar dinoi kebeged shel tefillah, and therefore the kittel still has the status of being a beged shel tefillah, despite the fact that you wear it to the Pesach Seder. Okay, now let's go to the Ramah. The last few lines on Lamed Amud Beis says the Ramah Hagah, the chol shekein lishkav bohen. Certainly, you are allowed to sleep while wearing a talis katan. Says the no Mishnah Berurah on this. Let's go weiter. The Yesha Kasfu. Okay. The Yesha Kasfu. There are those that write Shanagu Shaloi Lishkav Betalis Sheyesh by Tzitzits, that we are noyeg not to sleep while wearing a talis cotton that has tzitzits. And also, this may take many people by surprise. The Ramah brings down over here a shita not to give a beged with tzitzits to an Eino Yehudi launderer or cleaner. And the reason for all of these things would be so that the mitzvah should not become bazui. The mitzvah shouldn't be degraded in your eyes. I will speak about this more momentarily. However, says the Ramah, lahakel, to rule leniently, lishkav behem, and to say that you can sleep in a beged with tzitzits. Okay, so the Ramah started out over here by saying that it's mutter to sleep in a beged that has tzitzits on it. However, he brought down there are those that write that the minig is not to. And also, not to give a beged with tzitzits to a launderer or a cleaner who's an Eino Yehudi. Says the Mishnah Berurah Laman Aleph Shaloi Lishkav. Brings down a fascinating ari. Ubekisvei ha'ari zechroinoi levracha. The Chavetz Chaim brings down from the ari, Kosov al pi hasoid, where the ari writes based on Kabbalah, sheyesh lishkav balayla betalis katan, that you should sleep at night wearing a talis katan. Very fascinating. Let's take a look over here at Dirshu footnote number 12. First of all, the Rabbi Akiva Eiger points out, Rabbi Akiva Eiger points out from here, from this Ari, the Ari says that there's a minig to wear the talis katan while you're sleeping, kishitas harosh. It must be that he paskins like the Rosh. What Rosh are we referring to? So the famous machlokes that we had earlier, the Rambam and the Rosh, what's pshat that beged is not as man of tzitzits? Shitas HaRambam, Laila is not as man of tzitzits. So Laila, it doesn't matter what kind of beged you're wearing, whether it's a beged shal yoim or a beged shal Laila, night is not as man of tzitzits. That's the Shitas HaRambam. Shitas HaRosh, no. You could have a chiyuv of tzitzits at night. It just depends what kind of beged you're wearing. A beged shalayla is patur in tzitzits, even if you wear it during the day. But a beged yoim is chayiv in tzitzits at night. Says Rabbi Akiva Eiger, if the Ari is telling us that there's an inyan to sleep at a talis katan, why would there possibly be an inyan to sleep at a talis katan unless there's a chiyuv of tzitzits at night? Now, how could there be a chiyuv of tzitzits at night if you paskin like the Rosh? If you paskin like the Rosh, and therefore the talis katan is a beged yoim, and a beged yoim is chayiv at night, so then it makes sense to say that there's an Indian to sleep at night wearing a talis cotton, because you have a chayiv of tzitzits. But according to the Rambam, why would the Ari say that there's an Indian to sleep at night in a talis cotton? There's bechlal no chayiv of tzitzits at night. So what's the mile of sleeping in a talis cotton with tzitzits? So that's what Rabbi Akiva Eiger says. When Medivri Arizal and Rabbi Akiva Eiger, Kishita Sarash, that the Ari must paskin like the Rosh, Sheksus Yoim Chayiv b'tzitzis balayla, that a beged shal Yoim is Chayiv b'tzitzis at night. Shekein l'shitas Rambam, because according to the shitas Rambam, Sheksus Yoim p'tura balayla, that even a beged shal Yoim is pater at night. Vaday she'nit tzarich lishkav yima balayla. So certainly there's no Indian to sleep at a talis cut with tzitzits at night. There's b'chlal no mitzvah tzitzits. Umuchach, and it is clear, shahavin b'das ha'arizal, that Rabbi Akiva Eiger understood that the Ari was saying sheyesh lishkav balayla b'talis katan achayeves b'tzitzits, that it must be when Rabbi Akiva Eiger says that there's an Indian to sleep at night with a beged with tzitzits, he must be referring to a talis katan that has a chayiv of tzitzits. Shehi talis katan shalovish b'yoyim. Ma she'ein kedim yilbash talis katan am yichedes lalayla. If you would create a talis katan which is only a beged laila, then you wouldn't be Yotza mitzvah, not according to the Rosh and not according to the Rambam. If you created a beged of Dalet Kamfais that's a ksus laila, then even according to the Rosh, that beged is pater and sits. It's at night, or even during the day. So it must be, says Rabbi Akiva Eiger, what the Ari was saying is, you sleep at night wearing a talis katan shel yoim, which is chayiv in tzitzits even at night, according to the Rosh. That's Rabbi Akiva Eiger. But interestingly enough, in the Chuvas of Rav Osner Zechat Tzadik Levracha Kosav, Sha'af lishitas harambam, even according to the Rambam, shabalayla hu pato legamri mitzitzitz, who holds that Laila is bechlal not as man of tzitzitz, and even if you're wearing a beged yoim, you're pater in tzitzitz by night. Says Rav Vosner, according to says Rav Vosner, hainu rak legabe chiyav asiyas hamitzvah. The Rambam, when the Rambam says that there's no chiyav of tzitzitz at night, he means that there's no asiyas hamitzvah. You cannot be mekayim the mitzvah of tzitzitz at night because there is no mitzvah of tzitzitz at night. Aval, however, gam balayla nechesheves atalus lechefza shel mitzvah, but even at night, the talus cotton that has tzitzitz on it is a chefza shel mitzvah, sheyesh la skula lahagein. And if you're wearing a beged shel mitzvah, if you're wearing a chefza shel mitzvah, that has protective properties. Kevan cheskulas ha-mitzvah ene kishur l'zman chiyav ha-mitzvah. Because this segula property that the talus cotton has, lahagein, to protect, that is not linked to the kiyam ha-mitzvah. That's linked to the fact that you're wearing a chefza shel mitzvah. And even according to the Rambam, that Laila is lav zman tzitzitz, even for a beged shel yoim, it's still a chefza shel mitzvah. And the truth is, we have a shtickle raya to this, because if you remember, we had earlier that even according to the Rambam, if you go out Friday night wearing a talus cotton that has tzitzits on it, you're not over on hoitzah. Well, why not? There's no chiyuv of tzitzits. What are those funny strings hanging off your beged? No, it's still a noy lebeged. It's still considered a tuffle to the beged because it helps the beged. Why? Because this beged needs the tzitzits tomorrow. It's a chefza shel mitzvah even now. So again, the Rav Vosner is a shtickle arguing on Rabbi Kiva Eger. Rabbi Kiva Eger is saying it must be that the Ari Paskins like the Rosh. Says Rabbi Kiva Eger, no, he could even Paskin like the Rambam. There's still potentially an inyan to wear a talus cotton with tzitzits at night because it's still a chefza shel mitzvah. Continuing the footnote here, Vagoyin Rishlam Zalman Arbach Zechet Tzadik Levracha Kasav Sha'af betalas ham yuchedes lalayla. Even if it's a beged shel layla, yesh tam al piasoid lishon kushu lavush ba, there would still be an Indian to wear the tzitzits. Af al pisha p'turim tzitzits, even though it's pater from tzitzits according to everybody, even according to the Rush. Kevich yesh bazem mishum chibuv mitzvah. It shows the belovedness of the mitzvah. V'gam yoyel sheyischai b'mitzvah tzitzits miyad b'kumah b'boiker. And the other added benefit, says Reb Shlomo Zalman, Zechet Tzadik Levracha, is that if you go to sleep wearing a talus cotton, as soon as you wake up in the morning, you're being mekayim the mitzvah. He brings down over here that the minig of the Chazon Ish was not to sleep with a talus cotton. They give various reasons, but it seems most common that people do not wear a talus cotton when they go to sleep at night. Okay. Ois cotton tez zayin in the Mishnah Berurah here on Lamed Aleph Amud Aleph. So the Ramah brought down a very interesting thing. The Ramah brought down a shita that you should not give a talus with tzitzits to a launderer or to a cleaner who is an Eino Yehudi. Lekayves Eino Yehudi lechabes, says the Mishnah Berurah, talus im hatzitzits. The hakpada seems to be on the tzitzit strings. So you do not give a beged together with its tzitzits to an Eino Yehudi cleaner. Ella, rather, mater atzitzits, remove the tzitzits v'achakach kayvsan, and then launder the garment by the Eino Yehudi. Then the Ramah said, the Ramah brought down at the end, he said, Achdan hagim lahakel lishkav bahem. The Ramah said, we're noyig to be lenient and to allow one to sleep in tzitzits, but he doesn't say anything about the question of giving it to an Eino Yehudi launderer. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cutting Yud Zayin, lishkav bahem. The Ramah says here that we're makel, and we allow somebody to sleep in the beged with tzitzits. V'chein litein lekayves Eino Yehudi. And we're also makel, and we allow one to give the beged to an Eino Yehudi with the tzitzits to wash. Miu yesh bachmirin bazeh sheyasa kanal. However, he does bring down that there are those, he brings this down in the name of the Shiari Knesset HaGedolah, there are those that are machmir and say to not to give it to an Eino Yehudi with the tzitzits, to remove the tzitzits first. Now, it's interesting, the Mishnah Berurah does not say over here where he sees in the Ramah that the kula also applies to giving it to an Eina Yehudi. He brings it back down from the Elya Rabbah. I believe if you look at the Elya Rabbah, it's brought down for the Darkei Moshe on the Tur. The Ramah in the Darkei Moshe on the Tur brings down the kula on both fronts, both on going to sleep in the talis with tzitzis and giving the talis with tzitzis to an Eina Yehudi. I also saw brought down that nowadays it's not such a shaila. The hakpada of giving the talis with the tzitzits to the Eina Yehudi is that in those days they used to wash them by hand. To have an Eina Yehudi sitting and washing tzitzits by hand, that is degrading to the mitzvah. Is the Eina Yehudi machshir what he's holding? It brings to my mind a story that happened when I was a child. My mother had a cleaning lady in the home, and she was used to having the same cleaning lady for many, many years. And she used to give her silver to the cleaning lady to polish. One day, the cleaning lady couldn't come, and she got a substitute. So the substitute came, and my mother gave her some of the silver to polish. Now, when you have badly tarnished silver, it's black. Now, you go ahead and you have a cleaning lady in the home. Maybe she's a poor woman. I don't know if she ever owned a piece of silver in her life. I don't know if she has any clue what it means to polish a piece of silver. But she saw this silver, and she saw that it was black. And she understood that she was supposed to get the black off. Now, my mother gave her a canister of silver polish and a sponge. She said to herself, what, this lady knows from cleaning? She knows from cleaning like I know from silver. If you want to clean something well, what do you use? Steel wool. So she went ahead and she took a soap pad, a steel wool soap pad, and she scrubbed all the silver. And she got all of the black off. She also got all of the shine off. You can imagine what happens if you take steel wool to polished silver, right? She scuffed and scratched all of my mother's precious silver to pieces. Her leichter, all the kaisis, everything else. My mother walked in and she took one look, and I mean, she was just ready to cry. But she wasn't going to yell at the poor lady. The poor lady didn't know what she was doing. She thought she did a great job. I remember she had a big smile on her face. Look what a beautiful job I did. So my mother complimented her and sent her home and then cried. And then she took all the silver, and she had to give all the silver into the silversmith to have all of the silver repolished. Mashal Amad Daima. You're going to take a talus with tzitzit strings, and you're going to give them to an Eina Yehudi to wash them. And the Eina Yehudi is going to sit there by the sink scrubbing these tzitzit strings. Does he or she have any idea what she's holding in her hands? She's holding a beged malchus. She's holding royal begadim. These are tzitzit strings that have the Shem Hashem. There's a remizah to the Shem Hashem in those tzitzit strings. And this is what we want to give to an Eina Yehudi to sit there and scrub. But nowadays, the cleaning is done by machine. It's not done by hand. And therefore, there are those that bring down that nowadays, there would not be such a hakpad. Okay, now we go to the final sif in this Siman Sif Daled. Says the Mechaber, Yesh li zaher, one should take care, kisha adam loivesh talis, when you're wearing a talis, shalo yigrar tzitziyasav, that the tzitzits should not drag on the floor. Says the Mishnah Berurah, there are those that say that the reason for this is bizoy mitzvah. It's a bizoy to the mitzvah to have the tzitzis dragging on the floor. There are even those that say that it's a bizoy for the mitzvah. You know what it looks like? It looks like you're sweeping the floor with your tzitzit strings. And they bring down a pasuk. Oh, it's a pasuk. Well, let me remember the pasuk. 1 second. I think I saw it brought down over here. Bear with me for 1 second. Yeah, pasuk in Yeshaya. The Teitasiya b'tateya hashmeid. That the Rebbeinu Shalom says by Golus Chas v'Shalom that he will sweep the Klal Yisrael away with a destructive sweeping. That pasuk is said on those who sweep the floor with their tzitzits. It's a bezayin of the mitzvah. So the Mishnah Berurah says, Yesh b'farish matam mishum bizay mitzvah. V'oid, and another reason for this is kikarev sheyipaslu. Because if you're going to allow the tzitzits to drag on the floor, it's very possible that they will become puzzle. And therefore you should lift them up, and put them into the gartel. Pick up the bottom tzitzits and tuck them in to the gartel so they shouldn't drag on the floor. Now we go to Siman Chav Beis. Siman Chav Beis, Ubai Sif Echad. Here we have one sif. Says the Mechaber, Kana talus. If somebody purchases a new talus, va'asa by tzitzits, and he affixes tzitzits to the talus, mevarach shechiyanu, he should make a bracha of a shechiyanu, because this is no worse, no less, than somebody who buys a beautiful new suit. Now the Rishiva Zatzal, Rav Moshe and the Igris, says right away this is talking about a talus gadol, not a talus cotton. Talus cotton is very chashuv. It's a beged that we use to be mekayim a mitzvah, but that the chshivas of the mitzvah is not what we're making the shechiyanu on. We're making the shechiyanu on the chshivas of the beged. And talus cotton is not such a chashuv a beged. Suit, $400 suit. That's maybe cheap nowadays. That's a chashuv a beged. Talus gadol, big beged, nice, beautiful beged. That could be chashuv. Talus cotton, Rav Moshe says, is not chashuv enough for a shechiyanu. In any case, what's the Mechaber telling us here? The Mechaber says, what happened? Somebody bought a talus, he put tzitzits on it, now he goes ahead and he makes a shechiyanu. When does he make the shechiyanu? Sounds like he makes the shechiyanu when he puts the tzitzits on. Doesn't say anything over here about putting on the talus. You bought the talus, can't make a shechiyanu yet. It's just a talus. Now when you put the tzitzits on, now you make a shechiyanu. No, you're not putting it on. Very interesting. So the first thing that you need to know is that there's a famous machlokes, the Rambam and the Baal Ha'itur, when it comes to a shechiyanu. We make a shechiyanu on a mitzvah that's ba mizman l'zman, a mitzvah that we're mekayim at, only occasionally. Kriyas Megillah, Mikra Megillah. We make a shechiyanu, Mikra Megillah. Tkiyas Shofar. We make a shechiyanu on Tkiyas Shofar. Netilas Lulav. We make a shechiyanu on Netilas Lulav. These are mitzvahs that are ba mizman l'zman. You buy a chashuv keli, also you make a shechiyanu. The Rambam holds that when you have a mitzvah that requires an object, you have a mitzvah, tkiyah shofar. You need a shofar. The Rambam holds you make a shofar, so now you made the hefta shel mitzvah, you make a shechiyanu. Baal Iter says no. So too the Rambam says, tzitzits requires a beged of daled kanfos with tzitzits attached to it. You attach tzitzits to a beged, you make a shechiyanu, because you have now procured the hefta shel mitzvah. When you procure the hefta shel mitzvah, that is an essential part, an essential ingredient of the kiyam mitzvah. So when you procure that hefta shel mitzvah, you make a shechiyanu. So the Rambam says you make a beged of daled kanfos with tzitzits on it, you make a shechiyanu on that. The Baal Iter says no. You would make a shechiyanu on a mitzvah that's ba mizman l'zman, but on making the hefta shel mitzvah, you don't make a shechiyanu. With this in mind, let's take a look here at the Mishnah Berurah's Katan Aleph. Kana talus. Says the Chavetz Chaim, you might think that you have a very powerful kasha here. Ein lahakshos. You should not ask, what are you telling me that you should make the shechiyanu when you attach the tzitzits? Tahal kelim chadashim tzarech levarach b'shas kinyan. When you buy a beautiful new suit, you make the shechiyanu when you purchase the suit. So if you're making a shechiyanu on the talus, why don't you make the bracha when you purchase the talus? Veloma kasav also by tzitzits. So why does the Mechaber say that you should make the shechiyanu when you make the tzitzits? Explains the Chavetz Chaim to Yesh Shloimeh because he could answer as follows. Dafka kishekayne beged shuhuroi lilbais k'may shehu az mevarich miyad. When do you make a shechiyanu b'shas kinyan? When you purchase an article of clothing, when it's ready to be worn. But if you go to the suit store and the suit needs alteration, even if you pay for the entire suit now, you can't make a shechiyanu now because it's not ready to wear. So you can't get hanah from it yet. So only when do you make a shechiyanu b'shas kinyan? If it's ready to be worn. Avalim kana beged lasis b'meno babushim. But if you bought a beged that you're now going to alter or add another piece onto, then you don't make a shechiyanu even when you finish the alterations. Rak b'shas levisha dafka. Then you make the shechiyanu when you put it on. So again, when do you make a shechiyanu on a beged b'shas kinyan? When it's ready to be worn right when you buy it. If it's not ready to be worn right when you buy it, then you only make the bracha Shechiyanu b'shas levisha. The be'inon sham miyuchedes. Why is it either b'shas kinyan or b'shas levisha? Because there has to be a designated time for the bracha. So the designated time is either shas kinyan or shas levisha. Now it can't be shas kinyan if it's not ready to be worn. So then it moves over to shas levisha. Now how does that factor into a talus? Right? Oy kinyan or levisha. V'hacha over here by a talus, haloyena l'lav sheitekif. The talus, you can't wear it right away. You bought the talus, you can't make a shechianu now because you can't wear it. Why? Because you didn't put on tzitzis yet. Oh, so now you can't make the bracha b'shas kinyan. So now, l'chayra, the bracha should transfer to the shas levisha. But that's not what the mechaber says. The mechaber says put on the tzitzis and then make the bracha. What's going on? Explains the Chavetz Chaim. Al kain eini yakal levarach b'shas kinyan. So you can't make the bracha b'shas kinyan. So you should make it b'shas levisha, and that's not what the mechaber says. Explains the Chavetz Chaim. Ukidei lotzeis by gam kein das hasoivrim titzarek levarach shechiyanu al asiyas hamitzvah b'pam rishayna kidei lekayim d'shitas harambam. D'shitas harambam that you make a bracha when you create the chetz shel mitzvah. So since you're not making the bracha b'shas kinyan, so now instead of transferring it to the shas levisha, we're going to tell you b'yoytze d'shitas harambam and make the shechiyanu at the time that you affix the tzitzis. Al ken yavarech b'shas asiyas tzitzis v'layamted al levisha. Now the mechaber said that you make a shechiyanu because it's no less than buying kelim chadashim. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cutting beis to like gara. Aval einam avarech shechiyanu al mitzvah. But don't think that you make a shechiyanu on the kiyum of the mitzvah of tzitzis. Kevin de eina ba mizman lozman. It's not an occasional mitzvah, it's you do every day. Lefizeh, im also tzitzis bebeged shahaya lo mikvar. If you have an old talus sitting in your house, you had it for 10 years, and now you put tzitzits on it. Av shelo yaya by tzitzis b'yolam, even though it never had tzitzits on it, ain't tzarich levar shechiyanu. Over here, there's no shechiyanu to make. It's not a new beged, it's an old beged, so you're not making a shechiyanu on the beged. So what else are you going to make a shechiyanu on? On the mitzvah? We don't make a shechiyanu on the mitzvah. Why not? Because this is not a mitzvah ba mizman lozman. So too, you make yourself a pair of tefillin, you don't make a shechiyanu. Va'ayin bebir halacha. Finally, let's see the Ramah here. Haga v'em loy berich b'shas asiyah. If you neglected to make the shechiyanu at the time that you attached the tzitzits, mevarach b'shas ituf rishayin. So then you would make the shechiyanu the first time you put the beged on. Says the Mishnah Berurah is cut gilbel b'shas ituf patkila berkas lehisateif. First you make the bracha on the mitzvah lehisateif b'tzitzis va'achakach shechiyanu, and then you make the berkas shechiyanu. Thank you so much for joining me for Liban HaTorah. Discussing Liban HaTorah should be begging against Klal Yisrael. Rav Shem should send Yeshua's for first parnassus sheduchim to all those in need, and we should be zeicher to see the Bias Gal Tzedek Memherav Yameinu Amen. Be well.